Record, right.
Record. There we go.
Thank you, Roberta. Good evening, everyone. This is the June 26th meeting of the Somerville Community Preservation Committee. Pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, this meeting of the Somerville Community Preservation Committee will be conducted via remote participation. We will have a video recording available upon request as soon as possible after this meeting. Before we get started, Roberta, do you mind calling roll, please?
Sure. So we have Jahan.
Yes, present.
John.
Yes.
Heather.
Here.
Laura.
Here.
Ryan.
Here.
And I'm expecting that we'll be missing Joe and Eric this evening. And I don't see that David Turin has arrived yet.
Thank you, Roberta. Looking at the agenda for this this evening's meeting, we have about 5 items. I wanted to get started with the approval of the meeting minutes. So I wanted to ask my fellow committee members whether they've had the chance to review the meeting minutes that have been circulated by Roberta, and whether there are any comments, questions, any edits, any proposed edits for the committee.
I reviewed them and I didn't see any edits to make.
Great. Seeing no other comments, would someone like to make a motion to adopt the meeting minutes, please?
I can make that motion to adopt the minutes.
Thank you, John. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Laura.
And
Would
I
it be
will call the
possible?
roll.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
John.
Yes.
Heather.
Yes.
Laura.
Yes.
Ryan.
Yes.
Jahan.
Yes.
And David, this is a vote to accept the meeting minutes from the last meeting.
Yes.
All right. 6 in the affirmative and the motion passes.
Great.
Yep, go ahead.
Thank you so much, Roberta. So just moving along in the agenda, the next item is the Affordable Housing Trust presentation of the annual report. Roberta, would you like to do a brief intro, please?
Sure, I will briefly introduce my colleague, Paul Goldstein, who is the Housing Department staff member who serves the Affordable Housing Trust. Paul, I will let you finish introducing yourself.
Sure. Thanks, Roberta, and thank you, members of the CPC, for having me at tonight's meeting. As Roberta mentioned, I'm Paul Goldstein. I'm the Housing Programs Coordinator at OSPCD's Housing Division, and I'm also the staff liaison to the Somerville Affordable Housing Trust. So I'm here to give a very quick overview of the report I prepared about the Trust's activity over the last 12 months or so, and also to answer any questions you might have about the report or the Trust in general. So the Trust has had an eventful past several months. Since spring of last year, the Trust has made over $14 million in funding commitments to affordable housing development projects and affordable housing acquisitions. That includes a commitment made to SEC at this month's Trust meeting, which wasn't on the report because it just happened, for $1.3 million to create 3 new affordable rental units at 31 to 33 Cross Street. Another major commitment that was made last summer was the single largest commitment made to one project by the Trust, $6 million for the all affordable component at 299 Broadway, which is the old Star Market on Broadway, or now defunct Star Market. That's a $6 million commitment. As of right now, 1.5 million of that is slated to be CPA funds. So that's a lot of funding out the door for pretty sizable projects that are in development or have been acquired. Additionally, to my knowledge, 3 recipients of these funding awards have also explored the possibility of applying to the CPC for CPA historic preservation funds for those respective projects. So that's an exciting bit of collaboration that could potentially happen with some of those commitments. The Trust also committed $500,000 at the end of last fiscal year, including $200,000 of CPA funds for tenancy stabilization programs through an RFP process. These programs are an essential part of preventing displacement, eviction, and or homelessness for Somerville residents. The trust is planning to allocate a portion of its fiscal year 25 CPA allocation to fund additional housing assistance programs sometime in the fall. I think we're trying to get those out. I'll quickly conclude by saying that the trust is extremely thankful to be the CPC's arm for providing CPA funds for affordable housing. While the trust's not CPA funding sources, which are described in the report, continue to provide much needed resources for affordable housing in Somerville. As commercial and new residential development continues to slow, these funding sources will likely become less robust in years to come. The annual CPA allocation to the trust is a valuable source of funding, as it is one that can be relied on from year to year at a consistent level. So that's going to be a crucial resource to help continue furthering the trust goal of providing affordable housing units and assistance to Somerville's most vulnerable residents in the near future. So that's a really, really quick overview of the report. I'll pause now, and I'm happy to answer any questions about the items that are covered in this report, or any general questions about the trust you might have about future projects, past projects. Here to provide any insight I can.
Thank you so much, Paul, for the presentation. Always a pleasure to have you here presenting. You're welcome. I wanted to invite my fellow committee members to see if there are any questions. I do have a couple of questions, however, I'll reserve them till the end.
This wasn't mentioned because it's last year's project, I'm quite sure. I'm curious to know if you have any updates on the Clarendon Hill renovations.
So phase 1 is underway, and that was where the trust made the entirety of its financial commitments. There's the $4 million CPA bond, and also $2 million in non-CPA funds for that, which is total of $6 million. So I guess that ties it with the single largest commitment to one project. But phase 1, as far as I know, is on schedule. It's being built. If you drive by, it's under construction. I think they are trying to work out how phase 2 is going to come into play. I don't want to speak directly for the project team since I'm not on the project team. But I know that I hope to work with a market rate developer on the second and third phase of the project, and that market rate developer unfortunately pulled out of the project. So there was a funding gap to be filled. I know they've worked with other city departments to find other funding resources for phase 2. I think that's going pretty well. They have not approached the trust for a formal request for funding for that phase at this time. They may in the future. But as far as I know, phases 2 and 3 are still sort of being worked out, with phase 1 is well underway. I hope it's going to be finished soon, but I'd have to check with the project team on that. But if you do drive by, you can see some of the modular stuff going up. It's pretty cool to look at.
Yeah, I noticed. Thank you.
Sure.
Great. Thank you so much, Paul. I believe, Brian, you have your hand raised, please. Go right ahead.
Yeah, hi, Paul. This is Ryan Kirchhoff. Thanks so much for the presentation, for joining us. Just a couple questions, and this first one is just a process question because this is my, I guess, just finished my first year on the CPC, so I'm still learning how some of this works. So when a developer applies to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund to receive an allocation for their project, am I understanding that they're applying to the trust fund overall, and then the CPC funds are available as a tool for the trust fund to utilize how and where they want? Or is someone applying directly via the Affordable Housing Trust Fund specifically for the CPC funds? How does that work?
It's generally one sort of, it's not one pot of funds, but the application is for a set amount of funds. And the trust makes that allocation kind of based on what's available. So the CPA funds are tracked separately because they have a slightly different set of regulations that they have to be dispersed by. For example, non-CPA funds can serve households earning up to 110% of area median income, whereas CPA funds can only go up to 100% of area median income. Right. So generally, since I've been here, which will be 4 years in February, a lot of the CPA funds tend to go towards housing assistance programs because those are programs that are ongoing and are seeking renewed funding. And because the CPA allocation is a very reliable annual funding source, it's easy to plan ahead to refund those programs through an RFP process. If there is CPA funds needed to fill in the gaps for development projects, that's certainly something that the trust has done in the past as well. I think 184 Broadway is a recent example that sort of pulled from a variety of trust funding sources, CPA, non-CPA, was left with 100 homes CPA bond. So it's all about trying to make the request whole with the funds we have, and as long as it's within the CPA's purview of rules and regulations, that they're willing to make those commitments from the CPA funding bucket. The bonding is also a tool that we've used for CPA funds on 2 projects for 100 homes in now Clarendon Hill. That's a way to leverage funds that we can't do with non-CPA trust funds. So it really kind of depends on the nature of the project, what's available. But when someone does come for a development or acquisition project, they start looking at the entire pot of funding that's available for CPA and non-CPA. Hopefully that answers your question.
Got it. Yeah, it does. That's understood. Thank you. Thanks for that. And did I understand that some projects that have applied to the AHTF for funds and may have gotten CPA funds in the process, were you saying that they could potentially subsequently apply to this committee for historic funds? They can pull from both buckets. Okay.
Yeah,
Understood.
yeah, and that's not necessarily CPA trust funds. It could be non-CPA trust funds. I mean, I don't want to speak directly for the project teams because I'm overdue for some updates from them. But 24 Webster Ave is the development that Just to Start is going to construct. It's going to have about 42 units of rental housing. They got a $4.6 million commitment of non-CPA funds.
Okay.
I believe they were going to try to explore the possibility of getting a nominal amount of historic preservation CPA funds because they're going to save like one window on the existing structure. So that's sort of the kind of collaboration that could happen.
Got it. Cool. That's exciting to hear. Honestly, I just didn't know
Yeah.
if there was any rule against kind of double dipping between different buckets of CPA.
No,
There
not
isn't.
to my
Okay.
knowledge. Yeah. Though I think the only thing, I mean, Roberta and the committee would know more than me, but the housing allocation generally pretty robust. It's about $1.5 million a year. I think what's available for the other eligible categories is probably significantly less, but it's still a funding source.
Understood. Okay. That's all for me for now. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much, Ryan. Wanted to see if other committee members have any questions or comments for Paul. Heather, please.
It's not a question for Paul. It's more of a continuation of that discussion you were just having about the different buckets. So in our rubric, when we sort of developed it and also in the application materials, we sort of encourage hybrid projects that, because we feel like that kind of leveraging between affordable housing and preservation is a really nice fit for CPA funds. So it's definitely something that's encouraged. Doesn't always happen, but it has happened with some really nice successes. Yeah, and I was glad to hear that the kind of reliability of the CPA funds helps to move along the stabilization programs, because I think that they're probably very vulnerable otherwise, and so I feel really doubly good to know that it sort of really helps to do that. And my question for you is really, are there improvements that the CPA committee or administration, like in the ways in which it's administered, or the ways that the money flows, are there any improvements or requests or comments you would like to make to the committee in order for us to improve things?
I don't think directly for me at this time. I mean, like I said off the top, we're very grateful for the large portion of the total CPA funding bucket that comes our way, and we try to put the best use that we can. I think a lot of the points of feedback we get from our nonprofit partners, unfortunately, may be out of the realm of the CPC. I mean, most of our partner agencies, they do a great job, they do great work, but they are kind of struggling to retain staff, pay staff for the work, and unfortunately CPA is very strict about what you can and can't do with the affordable housing component of those funds. So like just to pay for staff outright is just not feasible. So if there's some way to change that, that would be great, but I don't really see that happening at the state level. We are trying to pursue the home rule petition for the non-CPA funds, which would allow for a little more flexibility for that funding source for the trust. That could potentially be a way to alleviate some of those financial constraints on our nonprofit partners to pay for more administrative work. We did end up, I think, last year we spoke a little bit about this, but I did talk with Roberta about there's any sort of restrictions for like the administrative cap for the contracts. In the past, we've done 50% of the award can be used for administrative purposes. We just bumped that up to 20%, the request of our agency partners, and that seems to be helping somewhat. So that kind of flexibility is certainly appreciated. But we're just very happy to continue to receive the allocation and put it to the best use we can at this point. You guys are doing a fine job.
Great. Thank you so much. Ryan, it looks like your hand is raised. Do you have another follow-up question? or
Yeah,
item?
sorry about
Please.
that. I just remembered another one. I was just hoping to, Paul, if you could talk a little bit more about acquisitions and what has happened this year, what's in the works.
Yeah, so you can use CPA funds to acquire housing for it to become affordable. A lot of the 100 Homes program was acquired using CPA funds, either through the 100 Homes bond or straight up CPA funds. The acquisitions from this past year were from the non-CPA funding source for the trust, specifically the Early Action Acquisition Fund. So at the very end of 2022, Mayor Valentine asked the City Council to reallocate $8.3 million that was initially set aside for the Green Line extension to the trust for the sole purpose of doing acquisition loans. So we had our first 2 applicants and funding awards and closings with that funding source. The Somerville YMCA purchased a building at 136 School Street that they intend to at some point raise and incorporate into a fully functional new YMCA with a large affordable housing component. And there was also an acquisition loan made to the Somerville Community Land Trust to acquire 12 Pleasant Avenue to provide deed restricted housing there. And that 12 Pleasant Avenue is actually also considered historic by the Historic Commission. I don't know when it was built, I think sometime in the 1800s. So they are one of the recipients of these funding awards who may be exploring the use of historic preservation CPA funds. But the goal of the acquisition fund is that it's a revolving fund, that they're set up to be short-term loans, 3 to 5 year term, and then paid back in full. Whether that happens, we'll see. I don't think a lot of our nonprofit partners have the capacity to do that in the short term. But we do offer the option to sort of roll that into permanent financing for the project after the loan term expires. So we'll see how it goes. It is a new funding source, but so far it's been pretty popular in that we've doled out of just about half of it for new acquisitions for affordable housing.
Got it. Thank you. That was my question: is how much has gone out the door? So about half. Great.
Yeah,
Thank
I think there's about 3.3 million, so maybe a little more than half. I think there's 3.3 million left of the Early Action Acquisition Fund at this point.
Got it. Thanks.
Great. Just wanted to see if there are any other additional questions from the committee members or even comments. Seeing none at this juncture, I do have a couple questions for you, Paul. If you don't mind going to page 3, I know there's a very nice graph that you have listed in the report. So looking at the second table, the one that shows the CPA appropriation year over year. This is the second table here. I know that there were a number of one-time transfers to non-CPA account, Green Line extension related, SCC extension, or SCC focused. Do you have any sense, and I'm asking you to kind of project that in the future, do you have any sense of whether any future one-time transfers will occur or are expected to occur? Have there been any conversations or any talk around that for FY25 and beyond?
I know there's one coming for more flex rental assistance for FY25 that just got passed, I think, at the last council meeting. I kind of hear about these as they're about to come down the pipe. And it's really, I think this is a pretty unique time for the trust, so that the city is really focused on continuing to fund affordable housing programs and projects with things like ARPA not being available anymore. So the last fiscal year, and then a little bit for this past fiscal year as well, FY23 and FY24, we did get a lot of money in sort of one-time transfers from the city. And the way that's worked is that the city council basically determines what the money's going to be for specifically and sort of channeled through the trust like a custodian to administer that program. So yes, the trust gets $3.5 million, but that's only to be used to rehab certain SCC properties. $1.8 million is just the match for the municipal voucher program. So it's hard for me to predict exactly when that's going to happen. I know in the case of flex rental assistance, agencies are already tapping into that sooner than they thought they would have. So there's a need for additional funding, and it sounds like the city is going to provide another transfer for that purpose. But at this time, I don't know exactly what other ones might be coming down.
Sure.
We'll see. I mean, I would love more funding through the trust to fund additional programs, but it's kind of hard to predict, especially with the city's tax base, I think, taking a little bit of a dip this year. So
Absolutely, Paul. I fully appreciate what you're saying, and it's interesting. I mean, when it comes to Table 3, where it shows, the CPA revenue is, it's 50%, and we're of course
Yeah.
committed towards it because affordable housing is obviously a key issue. One thought that I had, and this is again going to be more of an open-ended question. You could come back to us later on, or even submit something in writing, to me later on. But if you could think of possibilities or opportunities to leverage the fact that the CPC here has been supportive, and you have received CPA funds to secure additional funding in various methods. I think that's really going to be helpful, and I would really encourage you and your colleagues to think about that. And of
Sure.
course, we at the CPC would of course be very happy if you received another 8 million, 10 million, or
Right.
some other amount. So just a consideration. It's not really a question. It's just want to continue to support the great work that you and your colleagues have been doing.
Absolutely. Yeah, I appreciate that. We'll certainly discuss that further. I mean, we'll be any and all funding that comes towards the trust, I think would be great. And we've really, I think the report speaks for itself with the past, several months over the last, fiscal year and change. There's really been a lot of commitments going out the door. I think at one point there was like $13-14 million available for new commitments. We're now down to about like 3 million available for new commitments. That includes the CPA funding source. So the money is being spoken for, and projects are hopefully getting built. I know there's a lot that are currently in pre-development and planning, but we're excited to see those get started and more come down the pipeline for sure.
Absolutely, Paul. We really appreciate your thoughts. Again, I'm going to go back to see if any committee members have any additional questions, comments. Just want to see while we have Paul on the line here, if they want to ask any questions, anything.
You can always reach out to me on email too. Just pgoldstein@somervillema.gov, or if you want to go through Roberta, that's fine. I'm happy to answer any questions, outside of a public meeting as well. But we're very appreciative of the work the CPC has been doing, and we hope to continue to be a productive partner for getting these funds out the door.
Well, thank you so much, Paul. Not only for coming here and presenting, but also the work that you and your colleagues do on a day-to-day basis. The need is so great in Somerville, as we all know. And I think that any efforts we can make towards achieving more funding, more opportunities to either acquire or convert to affordable housing. I think it's a fair bet to say that it's going to benefit the entire community and retain some of our residents who otherwise would not be able to stay here, or bring in other residents that will add to our socioeconomic diversity and mix as well. So
Sure.
certainly appreciate everything that you all have done, and I'll certainly be in touch with you over email just to continue the conversation
Yeah.
around what I mentioned, because I do feel strongly about it, and I would love to see if there's any creative opportunities for us to further the goals of the Affordable Housing Trust as well.
Yeah, and you know what? I had one actual parting thought, just to go back to
Sure.
I think Heather's question about what can the CPC do to provide more support. I know like the Community Preservation Coalition, same acronym, different organization, is a great resource for what you can and can't do with CPA funds. But one point of feedback from my board that I've been getting is that there's an interest in seeing what can you do to use trust funds to support and rehabilitate existing affordable housing. I know there's very strict rules about if unless it was acquired with or developed with CPA funds, you can't use it for rehab purposes. But there is a decent amount of housing stock that was acquired with CPA funds that I think could be probably in need of some rehabilitation and upkeep. So with the way things are trending for acquisition, for development, and high interest rates, it may be more economical to focus on the housing stock we already have to make sure that's in good order. So that's just something to think about as well. And that's the thing I'd like to talk about further as we explore that more.
So, Paul, those are some great parting thoughts, and I certainly appreciate your time this evening. And you're welcome to hang around, but we have other committee business. But really
Sure.
appreciate your time and availability here as well.
anytime. It's great to see everyone. Have a great week. Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thanks. Great. So moving ahead in the agenda. Before I do that, Roberta, we don't need to take any vote or anything at this juncture. This was just more of a presentation. Is that right? Okay, great.
Yeah.
Great. So I think in that case, we can move to the next agenda item, which is review committee member and office terms. Roberta, if you don't mind sharing the details you have.
Sure. So I took some time I'm just opening the file so that I can share it with you all in a moment. I took some time to go through and check on the status of all of the member terms, and so that we can plan ahead about the membership changes that we're going to be facing over the next several months. So as you all know, Rose White stepped down. Last month was her last meeting. And we have, let me just pull up the screen. I've highlighted the positions that we have openings. So Rose White's position is currently open. But we also have both Laura and Jahan, who are going to be completing their final terms this December. So both have served since 2021, or they were both, Jahan was instated in February 21 and Laura since 2019. So completing 6 years and the 5 years of the term that you're completing, Jahan, which means that we'll be having some significant turnover in the board over the next few months. So I am thinking ahead about launching a recruitment effort, not only to fill our 2 positions, starting earlier this time, because I learned the last time that it took longer than expected for the city to complete the process of appointing our general public member when Ryan came on board. So getting an earlier start, we want to be recruiting for both positions now. And also, I'd like to look around at all of the other boards and committees that have representatives to us. I know we're missing Joe from the Housing Authority Board and Eric from HPC this evening. But I'd like to touch base with staff who support each of these boards and committees, and with the committee in the mayor's office, who are responsible for overseeing appointments to many of these boards and committees, to coordinate whether we can support their recruitment process to help them bring people on board to their committees who are would feel willing and committed to also serving on the CPC if they would be appointed to be the representative to the CPC. So I also wanted to highlight in advance that while we sometimes have, we can have the option of having a chair serve for up to 2 years. Obviously, that's not going to be possible with Jahan terming out after this year. So we can just be thinking ahead about a member of the committee as it stands now being willing to step in January to start a term as chair for next year. So I'll take any questions or comments with respect to member terms if you have any. I also included in the meeting packet a description of a draft member recruitment plan, which I can walk through very quickly. So this shows essentially the timeline and the steps that need to be undertaken to complete. I don't think that this is being shared right now. Let me just switch the sharing. So the steps to appoint a new member entail first, gathering a review committee for recruiting and interviewing, vetting potential candidates. So the review committee would include myself, a member of the board. So at our next meeting, I hope to invite, recruit one of you to serve on the review committee. And a representative of open space and recreation. It could be a staff member, PSUF. It could be a member of another board or committee that is related. So it could be a Concom member or somebody who served on the CPC in the past. So someone who has familiarity with the issues that are covered by CPC. Same with the historic preservation and housing representative could be a member of the housing division staff, affordable housing trust member. Actually, what's not listed here, but I could reach out, it could be a housing authority board member as well, given that that's the board that's actually represented on the CPC.
Roberta?
Yes.
Just to clarify, this is members from outside the existing committee, or is this could include?
It could include members of our committee, but we can't have a quorum of the committee to serve on this. This is essentially could be a subcommittee, but it can also include people from outside the committee.
Okay.
So once we've identified who the members of the review committee,
and I'm sorry, just one more quick question, and this is for the seats, the public representative seats?
And yes, public representative seats.
Right, because I think the committees that have seats kind of get to appoint their own. Is that more or less?
That's true.
Okay, just to clarify.
That's true. And as I mentioned, I'd like to work with the staff who support the other committees to support their recruitment effort.
Yeah.
Because I know that some of the committees have openings right now that it would be beneficial to everyone if they could be filled. And since I have to do a recruitment effort anyway, I may as well coordinate with those committees at the same time. So we're going to then just invite the members of the review committee to go over the plan and scope. And then I'm also going to be drafting an advertisement for the role, which I haven't done yet, and that can also be reviewed by the review committee. And then we will post the position openings. Under our ordinance, it's required that they be posted for a minimum of 3 weeks before we begin to determine who the finalists would be, if we are so lucky as to have multiple candidates within the span of 3 weeks of posting. So I've listed some ways that we intend to post, but I would also go about thinking outside the box about how to recruit people, and would love to take suggestions and input. I'm thinking of using our summer outreach activities, maybe to reorient around committee recruitment more than prioritization input, as we've always done in the past. So I'm still brainstorming about how I would do that and would welcome your input. And then the tricky part is candidate evaluation. Having 2 open seats, I don't want us to be hamstrung. If we have a good candidate after interviewing multiple people, I'd like to be able to move forward with that candidate while still holding the position open if we're still looking for an optimal second candidate. So I've tried to develop a candidate evaluation schedule that would enable us to move forward while also holding it open. And then we have to go through the process, the final process of having the candidates be reviewed and vetted by OSPCD and the mayor's office, and then they have to be approved by city council. So, in case you would be willing to serve on the review committee, I've listed at the bottom what I anticipate will be the review committee's staff tasks, so that there's a sense of how much of a commitment is it going to be. The most intense period is probably going to be the period of interviewing the candidates, because we don't know how many candidates there will be and how many interviews we need to set up.
Thank you so much, Roberta. Wanted to see if the committee members have any questions, any follow-up items. Heather, please.
So when you say there's 2 seats, you mean the general public, Rose's and Laura's, because Jahan's with planning, so planning will cover that, right?
Yes.
And then when you're talking about kind of finding synergies with other search committees that are filling other boards, does that just mean that you'll assemble an interviewing committee that will interview candidates for all of the different posts?
No, the interview committees for those are going to be handled by, I think all of them are under the mayor's office of AAC is what it is the acronym, and I can't remember what that stands for. But it's their review committee for all of the board and committee posts. So our committee, because we have an ordinance that specifies how we do it, lies outside of the process for most of the other boards and committees, but all of the other committees that send representatives to us are under theirs. So they have their own process for actually reviewing candidates, but I would like to coordinate with them in recruiting candidates. So I'd like to try to invite people to apply to serve on their boards.
Okay, and then how many people, I know that we looked at this last year, how many people would be on this committee, our search committee?
I see 5 people. It can be
Yeah.
flexible, but 5 people gives us the opportunity to at least have a representative of at least one representative of each program area, as well as myself. There may be some duplication.
Okay.
And how many of us make a quorum? I would kind of, is it,
So you currently have 8 people on the board, so 5 people makes a
5.
quorum.
so it can't be, so it's not really a problem if you're only talking about 5 total, as long as not all of them are from the current
Yeah.
CPC.
Right. Any other thoughts, questions?
No, thank you. And I appreciate that perspective, because I was thinking as you were talking about it, how, well, I've been on the Conservation Commission long enough to remember when we used to, review and recommend candidates, and we don't do that anymore. It's a black box. We're ultimately told who's going to be our new commissioner.
Well, I would.
I will just say that,
sorry, go ahead.
I think I'll just say I was on the search committee last round, when we brought on Ryan, I think it was, right? Anyway, it wasn't horrible. It was finite. There was a commitment for sure, and yes, you have to vet, and yes, you have to be, pay attention and be good, but it's not like super painful. That's what I can say, having done it.
Outcome. Despite the outcome, is that what you mean, Laura?
That is not what I meant.
Yeah, I can read between the lines.
Well, I think if it's one of those things where reaching out to former grant recipients again to see if they can advertise the opening on the board,
Mhm.
and they'll probably have questions about whether or not that disqualifies them from being able to apply for anything. But I don't. You might need to be able to answer that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a great idea, Heather, and we should continue to think of recruitment efforts. Despite Roberta's all out effort to bring forth qualified candidates, I think with the two openings that we have, openings for the public, we want to make sure that we get as many interested parties applications in the mix as possible. So I definitely agree with that.
Mhm.
Any other thoughts on this topic?
I like the idea of when we do our tabling, kind of including it in that, and I think it can't be as simple as we can still collect input about how people would prioritize the monies, but also just on the same board have something about like, are you interested in serving on the committee, and just
Yeah, simple sign.
Yeah.
yeah, just kind of putting it out there so that people walking by know
Yeah.
that it's open.
Are there any tabling things on our calendar between now and during this recruitment period? It's unfortunate we weren't
Yes.
thinking about this like 3 months ago.
That's a great segue, David. Roberta, do you mind showing the schedule, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
Sure. This is actually very good timing with respect to our recruitment calendar, because most of the upcoming events align with the schedule for recruiting candidates. I'm just trying to share the screen. So I put together a schedule of potential recruitment events for the summer. And again, the deal is, and I took off the mobile market events because I felt like those were very small events, like very small attendance, although it is really kind of fun to see how the mobile markets work, but we're not reaching a lot of people that way for the effort that we put into being there. So these are the events that I'm aware of that are calling for community tables at the moment. And I was able to lock in a date for the Union Square Farmers Market this year. Davis Square is very flexible. They have in the past invited us to name a date and just show up when it was convenient for us, because it's a very long timeline, 6 hours. They've encouraged us to split between 2 dates or just be there for part of the time if that works for us. So they're very flexible. Strike Up the Bands and Monster Mashup are the 2 Summer Streets events. And as we did one year in the past, we have the option of also tabling at Tufts Community Day. And in the past, when we did this, we shared a table with Medford's Community Preservation Committee. So it was kind of a fun opportunity to have a little cross-pollination and learn who some of our regional colleagues are. So I will support and hopefully attend any of these events with you, but I would, unless it's really critical to be there, I'm not sure that I'll go there on my own if I don't have committee members to partner with for those events.
Thank you, Roberta. So I do encourage the committee members to sign up to volunteer. It's really a rewarding experience if you haven't done so already. You'll notice that my name is on there for Monster Mashup. I've done this tabling event for past 3 years, Roberta, or
At
2
least,
years?
yeah.
At least 3 years. Always have had a great time. It's not to say the other events are not equally amazing. So I definitely want to encourage folks to sign up and basically support the outreach efforts that Roberta is undertaking here. So Roberta, just a quick question. Should there be a new event that may come across your inbox or you may become aware of, will you be able to update this schedule, or is this a pretty fixed schedule at this point?
I can update it whenever I have something. So I did reach out to the Arts Commission today to ask if this was the whole list or if there are any other events on their calendar. And they said to keep an eye out for What the Fluff, which is in late September. They're not sure right now whether they'll be making a call for community tables, but if they do, we might be able to add that. I think it was September 21, but I don't know yet whether they'll actually invite us to participate.
What about
That's
Art Beat?
Art Beat is in just a couple of weeks, and I didn't put it on the list because I spoke with them at length last year, and it's a very long event, and they very strongly want all of the tables to be covered for the entire time of the event.
I see, yeah.
And we weren't able to actually get any volunteers from our group last year to back me up. So I wasn't going to do a long event like that solo.
Yeah, for so many hours.
I didn't bother to put Art Beat on the calendar for this.
And then
Roberta, you can put me down for Tufts Community Day.
okay.
And Roberta, you can put me down for the Union Square Farmers Market.
Great. So we have some time. We can think about this. The farmers markets go on later in the season. In fact, all of these events, except for Strike Up the Bands, will come up on us pretty quickly after our next meeting. So that's a little bit, yeah, I may be able to just plan to, well, I'm not sure. Actually, August 4 is early in the season, and I'm not sure about my availability for
Yeah,
August
I'm
4.
out of town that day.
Yeah. So it's possible that we won't make Strike Up the Bands given the timing if we don't have people to staff that table.
Look at my calendar for August.
But yeah, otherwise we have time to fill in this calendar, and I'll probably be looking for other opportunities to go out and do committee recruitment specifically. So this may not be the only list of things to do.
There's a Gilman Square event in September.
Yeah.
But maybe they don't table it. I don't know.
Yeah, I asked about that and they didn't say that there would be community tables there.
Okay.
So then I wanted to, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, sorry, please go ahead, Roberta.
I just wanted to invite you all to provide an update on the other outreach activities for the outreach subcommittee.
Sure. Heather, Laura, if you'd like to provide an update, I'm happy to do so, but we were all in the meeting, so I defer to either one of you if you like.
I mean, sure.
Thanks. Thank you.
I can to do some of the talking. So we met with the goal of coming up with ways to spread the word out, to cast the net wider for CPC applicants. And so some things that have been done was reach out to city council members, reach out to particular nonprofits that Roberta knew of. What was it? Project Soup and one other that I'm blanking on. And then Roberta shared a spreadsheet of possible stakeholders. So people who have applied or seem like they could have projects that would be applicable. And I sent out, I don't know, about 25 emails to the contact people on that list, just to let them know, just to sort of give them a heads up that the RFP is open now, and here's the deadline, and here's how to apply. I forwarded the city, the one that Roberta sent out through the city's listserv, because that has all the steps outlined very nicely, very clearly with links and such. I'm not sure if it resulted in any more applicants than usual, but that's what we've done so far. I did reach out to the at-large counselors after our last little meeting. Didn't see anybody putting it on their newsletter yet, but the timing may not be right, and hopefully they have it in their minds. For if it's maybe it sparks something.
In the context of reaching out to the council members, city council members, did you give them like something that they could actually drop in their newsletter? Because that actually might be a good way to do it, is rather than kind of telling them, hey, by the way, this is this process and you can do, is like kind of write a paragraph that they can just drop in, and so it's less of a lift for them.
And I think that email is pretty cut and paste.
Would it be something that they could just use? That's kind of what I'm just getting at.
Yeah. Yeah, it's Roberta's email that has like the CPC logo on it and all the links and stuff, which is pretty forwardable, cut and pasteable. I mean, that's how I did it.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. I've done the same, Laura, when it comes to the city council members, just to reach out to them, and I'm going to try to see if I could follow up as well, because I know they're busy and there's a lot of things going on. So I think that makes a lot of sense. David, I wanted to ask you, I know you haven't been able to attend our subcommittee meetings because of the timing. Just wanted to see if would you like us to include you in on emails, things, outreach efforts that you could take on?
Yeah, you'd be welcome to. I mean, Roberta and I talked about that, and I guess in the context of our exchange, I didn't want there to be this misapprehension about my availability, because I know that the dates that, it was hard to find a date, and the dates that you were all focusing on were during, my work day. Sure. So I just didn't, but I'm happy to be, on the distribution list. I just didn't want there to be this misunderstanding about, about what me being on the list meant.
Sure, absolutely. We'll keep you in mind, David. Heather, wanted to see if you had any other thoughts to add about our subcommittee work, rather.
No, other than we'll keep on trying, and I don't know if there is any update, Roberta, about signage, or I was wondering if we could put something on about the 10-year anniversary up on City Hall or anything like that.
I will follow up with that specific question. I haven't had an update. I haven't created the signage yet or figured out where to post it. So it's been on my mind, but yeah, I need to follow up with that.
Sounds great.
In conjunction with fixing the clock tower, that it could be sort of an opportunity to give ourselves a shout out. And then the idea of trying to put the CPA sort of annual report in some public places where people might see it.
Yeah, I'm farther along with that. I just need to place the order. I've got quotes and I have a final printable plan ready to go.
Okay, great.
Great. Thank you so much, Heather. I also wanted to mention to the wider committee, even though the subcommittee meets, separately on a monthly basis, or has been meeting at least on a monthly basis, if there are any thoughts, any helpful tips, comments, advice that might be helpful for the subcommittee, please feel free to share them with us. I think our goal is to engage in as much outreach as possible to the extent possible. I mean, we are trying to really make an effort here, at least in this year, to really get the word out. So if you have any new and creative ideas, anything that might work out well for us, we're it's an open invite. You can always share with us. You can share with Roberta, share with us during these committee meetings or any other avenue that you might find convenient or applicable. So just wanted to put that out there as well.
And I
Um,
wanted to address Laura's question about any feedback from the efforts that we've made so far. I did get an intent form submitted by Project Soup. So hopefully that will foster some communication between Project Soup and their landlord to fix their building.
Okay.
that's
Positive.
terrific.
That's
That's terrific
yes.
news. And Laura,
Yeah.
thank you. Your efforts are paying off. I mean, even if we get one application, in addition to the others, I think it's worth it. So thank you.
Definitely.
Great. So I just wanted to see if there were any other topics, items that anyone wants to bring up for the good of the committee. Roberta, do you have any other items that you wanted to bring up as well?
The only thing that I would do is bring up the 2024 calendar, just so that we can look ahead at what's coming up next month. I'm opening the calendar and we'll share it with you momentarily. All right. So we're in June. Next month, we're expecting to receive a request for a contract extension from the Hispanic Association for their FY21 grant, which was for, I think, $49,500. It was the first grant in a series that they've made, and being the oldest grant is running up on the end of its term. Well, they're still staging the larger overall project. So they're going to submit a memorandum giving an update on their timeline and a request to extend that earliest grant. And as of our next meeting, it will be a week after the eligibility determination forms will have been due. We agreed in a previous year that the eligibility determination forms would be given a staff level review rather than a committee vote on their eligibility. But I'll give you a report on my findings at our next meeting, so you can see what projects we have in the pipeline and whether there were any controversial or questionable, projects that are a little more complicated that require more research to understand their eligibility. And I'm sorry.
When are applications actually due?
The applications are due September 13.
Oh, okay.
The full applications. So we'll also I'll be looking for at least one of you to be named to our candidate search committee at the next meeting. So Jahan, you and David are, well, I imagine that we may want to focus on historic preservation. So I'll probably reach out to the preservation planner or to Eric. But David and John, actually, maybe the PISA for the Conservation Commission can put your heads together and think about who is a candidate you'd want to suggest to serve on review committee.
Of course.
And yeah, so that's all we've got. And then August, we take the month off. I just have to throw this out there. Over the summer in our neighboring community, we also take a month off of business, but we get together for a social meeting during that month, meet at a restaurant or have a potluck picnic somewhere. So I don't know if committee members would be interested in that. It might be, especially since we've been meeting fully remotely for the last 4 years, it might be nice to have a in-person gathering once a year. So maybe I'll send an email out and see if there's interest in having an in-person gathering. And, you know, if there are some ideas about where to do it, it's kind of late to start planning something like this, especially just throwing this at you with no prior notice. But yeah, we'll see whether we can think about something, and if you'd like to try to put some actual full bodies to the faces that we're seeing once a month. So that's all I've got.
So Roberta, I think I just want to say that's a terrific idea. And I think if you send out the email, it might be helpful to not only gauge the interest of my fellow committee members, but also should there be sufficient interest, then maybe setting up maybe a poll to see when the dates might work, what days might work. Because if we're targeting, let's just say August, I know there's a lot of travel plans, vacation plans, a lot of things going on. So I think, you know, I leave it to my fellow committee members to gauge, you know, on the interest level. I, for one, would certainly be interested in such a gathering, especially with the weather being, you know, nice. Hopefully not a heat wave, but still nicer, you know, with the sunshine, you know, to meet and get a chance to meet each other in person. So I think it's a terrific idea, Heather. I mean, Roberta. Sorry. So having said that, are there any other items that the committee members want to talk about, or anything to bring up, or even react to? You know, Roberta's presentation. Heather, I have you on my mind today. All positive things. So I just wanted to see if you know, if there's any thoughts around that, or if not, then we could certainly adjourn this meeting as well.
I like the idea also of
Great.
an in-person get together. Send out something with it that includes a doodle poll, maybe with some dates that are, you know, work for you, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, I support that as well. I also would like kind of suggest, even though, you know, August would be the natural month because it's a month we don't meet, is considering, you know, September, when maybe people's travel plans are a little bit less active and kids are back in school, and, you know, and I certainly, you know, wouldn't have a problem with the, you know, a social event in addition to, you know, the meeting.
Sure. I mean, David, I think that's a really great idea, and I would presume the weather would still be
September.
Yeah, just if we wanted to do something outdoors,
Yeah.
you know, the temperature would be, you know, pretty good. So I think that's a great thought as well.
You know, I mean, so just you know, maybe in the context of a doodle poll or some sort of thing is not necessarily rule out it being, you know, a month other than just in August.
Yeah.
Sure. I think that sounds great.
Great. All right.
Wonderful. So if there is no other business, would somebody please make a motion to adjourn?
I do. I'll make the motion.
Thanks, Laura. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you so much, Heather. Roberta, please, if you would call the roll.
Yep. David,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Jahan,
Yes.
Laura,
Yes.
Heather,
Yes.
and Ryan.
Yes.
Great.
Thank you, everyone.
All right. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Have a great
Have a
evening.
good
See you
evening.
back on July 24th.
Stay on
Take care.
July, yeah.
Thank you.
Maybe we should go to the Blessings of the Bay.
Yeah,
sounds
I will take
wonderful.
suggestions. That is the next thing on
We
the
should.
email.
There's
You
Yeah.
should definitely consider it.
lots to choose from in this town.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Right.
Well, thanks so much. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Okay.